Hi, friends. You are in for a treat today, especially my fellow romance readers, because I'm so excited to have Cara Bastone with me today. Welcome, Cara.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. I love your books already, but many may not know you yet. So, can you do a quick short intro on yourself and your path to becoming a full-time published author?
Sure. My name is Cara Bastone. I'm an author. I started out as a ghostwriter, and I was writing across all genres, all genres. So mystery, thriller. I don't think I did any horror. And then a lot of romance. And I always was really drawn toward romance. It was always my favorite to write. I was reading, I've read a lot of romance since I was a kid. Um, and it was the genre I felt most called toward. And it was also the community that was the most friendly. And there's like no gatekeeping in terms of, hi, I'm starting to write. How should I get published? How should I find an agent or editor? I just had so many people be like, here's how. Yeah, I just moved toward that world, and I have been lucky enough to find a path.
Oh, I love that. I love to hear that the community is supportive.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, there's one phrase I've heard over and over again, which is high tide raises all boats.
Mhm.
And I just think that's really true in the romance world. It's like, sure, I mean, there's competition, but I would say for the most part, it's like when one romance novel is doing well, it's like, okay, great. Now there's a whole other like canal for all of us to
Mhm.
take our boats down that area too. So, yeah, I think anytime somebody's doing well, it's like, yes, doing well for the whole community.
I love that. I have a few questions on your bio on your website because when I read it, I was like, oh, that's so fun. I just love like the little things that you put in there, right? So it says you're a fellow boy mom. So yay for boy moms. But you also said you're a dog mom to an almost golden doodle.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So he was like, how to explain this? So he came technically from a breeder, but it was like an accidental batch that they were gonna like give to the pound because like the wrong dogs
Oh,
bred or
uh-huh.
like in with each other. And so they didn't really know what he was. And he looked like a golden doodle right when he was like a little puppy. He had all this like golden like Farrah Fawcett hair. But they didn't know what he was, and he was like really a weird size. He was supposed to be mini, but he was big, and all these sorts of things. So they basically just like gave him away. We took him, um, and but then after we had him groomed for the first time, he came out, and he was just like this little white poodle. And it was there. It's like the all of the golden hair is gone, and he's just been our little like we always say, like, oops, I'm a poodle. It's like
Oh,
how we talk about him. So yeah, I think he was born a golden doodle, but was destined to be like a little French poodle. And that's our guy.
I love that. I also liked a little part of it. Let me pull up the exact wording. You say but the goal with their work is to find the swoon in ordinary love stories, and love story features men who aren't hobbled by their own masculinity. And then, like I said, I'm a boy mom, so I read that and went, yes, thank you. And I think that kind of got to the heart of why I love your stories. And we'll talk way more about that because we'll dive into the stories themselves. Um, but I love that. So thank you, first of all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I think when I wrote that, I was trying to think like, what is it that I am thrilled to read in romance novels? Who are the heroes that I am most swooning over? And some of them were grumpy, but none of them were assholes. And I think that's kind of what I was narrowing in on there.
Yeah, no, I like it. And the everyday part of it is, we often see these like really grand gesture things, which is great too, but it's like the small moments, right, that are
Yeah.
also really good. So we'll talk way more about that because yeah. those are the things that spoke to my
Okay.
heart throughout it all. Um, but just so our listeners know, I'm going to lay it out just a little bit of what we'll hear today. So I'm going to start with some general questions for you, and then we'll dive into specifics about the books. And I will say, friends, there might be some spoilers. So if people have not read the books, you can save the video and come back to it. You can skip the parts that you haven't read yet and then come back to it later.
Yeah, I'll try to lay out what tropes the book uses so that some of the, look, whichever book we're talking about, so that, because sometimes people think things are spoilers when I'm like, that's just the trope that the book
Yeah,
is. Like,
yeah,
that's just, it's what the book is. It's not a spoiler. So that's my personal take on that.
perfect.
Yeah.
But just so people know, if they come at me or come at both of us and say, ah, you didn't tell me that you were going to tell me the whole story, which we won't tell you the whole story, but um, people can do that. And then towards the end, we'll talk about your tips, advice for people that might want to get into writing or just, look at something different. And then some quick fire questions for you at the end.
Wonderful.
All right, well, let's get started. So, obviously, romance books have an HEA, a happily ever after at the end. That is what we expect, right? But for every book, is there a specific hope that you have for your readers to come away with?
Yes. I think technically, I think technically my books are happy for now, not happy
Mm,
ever after, because I don't write weddings and I don't provide epilogues. And the reason for that is like this everyday love idea that we are talking about. I'm trying to find the romance in the way that two people actually fall in love in real life, and I want people swooning over that. And I think there's enough excuse me. I think there's enough representation for unrealistic love stories, often with kind of an unhealthy tinge to them. And I'm really trying to add into the canon as much as I can. And not in romance novels as much, but I see that more in like movies and big swoony stories. I'm really trying to find the swoon in healthy love stories. And to me, a healthy love story is a happy for now. And the when the story can end on the moment that is right for the story to end. I'm not shoehorning in a wedding or a pregnancy or whatever it is that is like a signal they're going to be happy forever. I want the reader to know that they're going to be happy based on the work that the characters have done throughout the book, and based on their journeys. And I want it to be like a bone deep, like molecular knowing from the reader that doesn't need the scaffolding of a wedding or an epilogue or any of these kind of signifiers that people use in romance novels to show all is well here. I want the feeling to be, this is how people come through difficult things. This is how people connect with each other. This is the hard work that they did. And because they did the hard work, now we all just get to be like, close the book and be like, like relief. And yeah, that's
yeah.
really how I want people to feel at the end of the book.
Oh, I'm such a feeler, and we'll get into Promise Me Sunshine and the mess
Okay.
that it got me into.
I know, I do feel like I have to apologize about that book, like to everyone. Like, I'm sorry I did that to you.
No, but it's like this journey, right? That it makes you go through the emotions, all of that is fantastic. But I'm curious about your writing process and how you come up with ideas. Do you kind of come across a real life situation and then it just sparks your stuff? You write it down somewhere and then come back to it. I'm also wondering if it's like Lenny from Promise Me Sunshine, where one person becomes all these like ideas, or
Right.
how
Yeah,
it
she's
works
like
for you.
fantasizing about all the
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Um, yeah, definitely. I would say really active imagination. I definitely do the thing that people do where you like see an interesting pair of people sit down and you're like, are they in love? Are they cousins? Are they enemies? Like, what is happening there? And as the more you observe them, I'm like eating my sandwich and they're eating their sandwiches over there. And like, I can create a little world. And I mean, one of the things that I love about Lenny is, or love in that book is at some point, Miles realizes that her fantasies are not accurate. They're just active. And I think that is, a great practice for curiosity for anyone, for the world. It's certainly a great practice for a writer or for anyone who wants to be a writer. Where do the stories come from? I don't know. They kind of a seed plops out of nowhere. And from there I can build the world. And sometimes it's a character or a voice or a line. Sometimes it's a moment between two people and I can already see their dynamic there. Sometimes, very rarely, it's like a theme where I'm like, I'd like to expand on that theme. Um, but I would say anytime, literally anytime I've been like, and now I'm going to write this book. Never once have I been able to write that book. It's just like it's not how it goes. And oftentimes, like when I'm in a contract for Audible or for Dial, like my editors and I have learned the hard way to just be like, some writers I think are like, book one titled this about these two characters, book two titled this about these two characters, all the way down. For me it's just like book one, book two, book three, whatever the universe is going, wherever they're going to lead me, like I can't, and if I say book two is going to be about these two characters, sometimes I'll get 20 or 30,000 words into it and I'm just like, it's like sawing a tree down. I'm like, this is not fun for me. I can't do it and I have to pivot. Like I just, maybe it makes me very particular, but there has to be an indescribable magic to it for me to be able to invest the years it takes to write a book.
I think we often don't know how long it takes an author, right? Or because we see people publishing multiple a year or whatever, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But it's all years in the making, right?
Yeah, right. And it's not all years of generating necessarily, or like, sitting at the computer and trying to solve a specific problem. But I would say from when the idea lands to when it's like headed to the proofreader,
Mhm.
it would really surprise me if it was taking people less than 18 months.
Mm.
Um, although I know that self-pub goes on a different, when you're self-pubbing, like I think you can speed things along
Mhm.
more. When you're pubbing with a publisher like TradPub, like you just send it to an inbox and then they're going to do whatever they're going to do in that inbox and whatever time, and they've got all these other books they're juggling and all that, and then someday it comes back to you, so that is part of the timing. But I think that's writing too, like the time that it's in somebody else's oven, it's not in your oven still.
Right.
You're still, and it's not like an active writing time, but I do think that those periods of rest within the 2 year, it's still percolating.
Okay, let's talk about your books. So let's start with the newest one, which was Promise Me Sunshine. It just released in March. And I alluded to this, but I'm a very much a feeler and a crier in all kinds of things. My husband will always look at me in movies or whatever to see when the waterworks start. But you really got me good with this. Um, I think I was coming back on a plane from Mexico from a girls' trip, and I was reading it, and the ladies next to me probably had no idea what was going on with me because I was giggling one moment and then I was
Yeah.
bawling another. I was like, oh my gosh, trying not to cry, asking for my sparkling water, like extra napkins, please. Um, anyway, they didn't know what to do with me, but I just was a sopping mess. But I received this as an ARC, and it was my first book of yours, actually. I had so many on my
Oh, wow.
TBR, and I was like, okay, but my TBR is very, very long. And so,
Right, right,
and
right.
then like
Yeah.
Libby, tells me which ones are anyway. But this was the first book I read, and then I had to go binge on all
Oh,
the other ones.
cool.
And I was like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, like this is so good. And then, yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about the other ones too. But I'd love to hear what was your thought going into this? Like, was it inspired by something? Can you share more about this book?
Yes. So I think it all goes along with this idea of writing love stories that could actually happen to people. Um, so the way this story came to be from me was I went back a couple of years ago and finally pulled a journal off the shelf that I had like kept on the shelf for years and didn't like looking at because it was like journal I kept during a time of high grief and through the loss of a friend. And it was a lot of poems that I had written. And when I wrote it, I remember thinking like feeling like not myself. Like grief had totally augmented who I was. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't recognize the voice I was writing in, all of these things, and I felt very lost. When I went back and read it, 15 years later, I saw myself in every single line. I felt very familiar and I felt so much affection for that person. And it hit me this idea that grief can augment you so you don't feel like you are you, but you are you, and you are very lovable, even in the midst of this extremely difficult time. And I thought to myself, if someone could fall in love with someone else, meet them for the first time and fall in love with them when they're going through this very, very difficult time, you know, I can't think of kind of a stronger foundation to start from. And I can't think of it makes me feel like, okay, the loyalty is baked in then. If you're enduring the tough times from the very beginning, it can only get easier, I think. And usually that's not how most romantic relationships go, where they start very easy and on the we're falling in love and everything is so great and you think the person is perfect and then things get harder as you go on. And that's okay too. That's a wonderful path to take and also a very strong path to take. But it just intrigued me, that idea. But I thought nobody wants to read a rom-com about grief and how would I even do that and this, that, and the other. But the idea kept coming up, and then suddenly Lenny was there, very strong. Her narrative voice was very strong. I had this one scene pop into my head, this one line pop into my head, and from there, the it was like, okay, who said that? Oh, Lenny, and she was there. And then like I was walking, like 20 steps later, who did she say it to? And oh, Miles was there. And the way he reacted to that line, it was just like two lines together. And I saw their whole dynamic spread out. And I was like, okay, there's really something there. And I had to give it a shot. Um, I wanted to write about grief. Grief is a bear, grief is a tidal wave. I did not want to use grief as a tool for telling a love story. I wanted to use grief, not use grief. I wanted to explore grief in a novel. And um, that's how that story came to be.
Can we ask what the line was?
Yes. Okay. I don't know if it's a spoiler. It is a direct quote
Spoiler
from,
alert.
yeah, spoiler alert. So she has this one moment. Oh, there's the poodle right there.
Oh.
He wants to get
Hi,
out.
buddy.
Okay, so she's having this like epiphany about how you can't have the good times without the bad times. You can't like life is beautiful because grief is a part of it, not in spite of it. And she's having this big, like kind of avant-garde realization about how the world is like an oil painting. And she says to Miles, let's be oil paintings, you beautiful bitch. And the line made me laugh, just like it came out of nowhere and it made me laugh. And it's just like, oh, that's so ridiculous. Who would ever say that? And then Lenny in her like full entirety was there. And in response, he says, like, it must be exhausting to live in your brain. And I got that, like the affection that he feels for her in that moment, but also the exasperation and like their whole dynamic was also there in that like one short interchange. And that was the very first scene that I wrote for the book, like that um whole, not the whole camping scene, but like her whole realization and all that was
Oh, I love that. That really does put them in a nutshell.
yeah.
And I also think there's just this beauty that you wrote of like how we go through grief and our experiences can help other people, right? Where
Mm, yes,
Miles went through this thing and saw it and wanted to be there for her to help guide her. And so I think that is a
totally.
thing as part of community, right? And being able to show up for others.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you put it that way too, because when I first started writing this book, it was to understand my own experiences with grief. But as I wrote it and as I edited it and as I got ready to put it out into the world and made all of these little changes, I realized I really was writing it in the hopes that it would go out and be a companion for anyone who was either a Lenny or a Miles. And I think most people are both throughout their lives. But that felt, and I'm aware that a lot of my readers are younger than I am too. And I just felt like, okay, I made it through this. It was really hard. How can I like send anything out into the world that's going to make
Mhm.
it even a tiny bit easier for someone else who's experiencing this?
Yeah. And I think since becoming a parent, I also experience books differently too, because I felt in so many different ways. So for example, like looking at Ainsley, and I loved each of the relationships that people had with her, right? Like Miles tries and just is not a natural, right? But then
Right, right.
he then has his own way of connecting with her. Lenny has like this natural ability to connect with kids, and that's just her gift. And then
Mhm.
you have Reese, who, just has obviously as a mom has a very different relationship. And
Right.
then you also see this dynamic with Lenny's parents, right? And maybe I'm bringing too much in. So we'll stop with the Ainsley part for now. But
Okay.
I just I just love that because there's also this message of there's no one way to parent. There's no one right way to parent, right? And we're all doing our best. We're better together.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And both of Ready or Not and Promise Me Sunshine were conceived and written during the pandemic.
Mm.
And trying to remember if I wrote Promise Me Sunshine during lockdown. I don't think I did. I think it was right after lockdown. But anyways, I had both of my kids during that time. And when the idea of like it takes a village was just an idea on the wind so far away. It was just me and my husband in the house with the kids 24 hours a day. And of course, we had our family and friends FaceTiming and sending books and standing on the sidewalk and waving and shouting to our kids and stuff like that. Like we had people trying as hard as they could to be the village. But the idea of uh many people helping to raise your kid through many different varying degrees of relationships and involvement was so romantic to me, and it was so I so was looking forward to when that could be a part of my kids' lives, which it is now that we're beyond that a bit. But yes, and I was a nanny too, and I was very aware at the time of the things that were easier for me because I was a nanny.
Mhm.
Like disciplining the kids was so much easier for me than it was for their parents because the kids, I love those kids so much, but love from a parent is unconditional and kids know it. And so they act up for the parents, they're like, I don't care, you're gonna love me no matter what. But when
Yeah.
it's the nanny, they just like they listened to me right away. They did the thing, that it was just a different dynamic. And um yeah, I really wanted to explore that in this book, and I'm so glad it was effective for you.
It was. And then if we talk about Lenny's parents, so there was a line in there where I think it was her mom who says, I felt like I lost two daughters. And I was like, oh my gosh, you gut punched me already. Um, but I hope that, for me as a parent, that I would be able to be and this kind of goes into Ready or Not too, but for the kids that come into our home that are not my blood children, right? To be able to be there for them, to be a safe place for them as well. But also, I hope my kids have these friendships that are amazing and beautiful and lifelong, right? So I loved reading that part of it as well.
You're the first person to bring up Lenny's parents to me.
Oh,
And I've talked to a lot of people about this
yeah.
book, and so I just love that. I'm so excited to talk about that. I I forget there's a famous person who said it, but my mom is the first person to have said it to me. So I always attribute this quote to my mom. And she was like, no, it wasn't from me. But anyways, she says like, all of parenting is preparing your children to leave you. And
Mhm,
you've done it well when they do, you know. Um, and I think about that a lot with adult children and
mhm,
this thing where you're like your kid's whole world for just a few years and then you're not. And even when you're the person they need the most, like, I don't think anyone, I mean, Miles comes in at the perfect moment. He protects and um, keeps her afloat.
mhm,
But probably if she had let them, her parents could have done the same thing for her. She has really good parents, but she
mhm.
didn't let them do that.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I can't imagine something more painful for her parents than that. Knowing you could be the one and your kid just doesn't let you do it, even when you have a good relationship. That was also very interesting to me. And I uh, love the arc of their love story and how Miles is also the thing that allows Lenny to let her parents back into her
Yeah.
life too. Like there's just so many interconnected things of acceptance of love and who you can let love you and who you can let help you, honestly.
Mhm, mhm. And you see their relationship grow too between Miles and the parents. And when he's like, "Oh, you can call me," I'm like, "Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cute." Like, because a lot of times you hear about in-law relationships that are not great. So just like this ability for the parents to reach out and stuff. Anyway, oh, I could talk about this all day. But I think I also love that where I saw, just like you say, these are the ordinary love stories. I saw personality traits of myself and my husband in both Lenny and Miles, and not exact. Like I am not as all over the place as Lenny, right? But I am definitely the more passionate, the more like want to do different things, just seat in my pants. Whereas he is the calm, like
Mhm.
logical, he's an engineer, like that kind of puts, like, so I see that. And he also shows love in very, I don't want to say small ways, but in the like unspoken ways, right? And I love that. So yeah, I just love it. I just love it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. I think that there's something really rewarding about being able to interpret your partner's love language and the little things they do that are proclamations of devotion that only you can interpret. That's one of the joys of a romance novel is that if the writer is doing it well, the reader is let in on those things too. Like we get this little window into that language between the two of them. But yes, I Miles is both very subtle and very not subtle at the same time. It was really fun to write him.
Yeah. Should I ask if you had a favorite character to write?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the obvious is just Lenny. I just loved writing her. It was really free. She's really irreverent. And I loved there's nothing she's being constricted by grief, but she is such a vibrant and optimistic person that who she is popping out no matter how hard of a time no matter yeah, what she's going through.
Yeah.
I loved writing that, and it made me feel really hopeful to write that. Like it made me feel like, who we are survives,
Yeah.
even in the worst circumstances. Like we're gonna get through it. That was really lovely to write, lovely to discover. I loved writing Ainsley. I just had so much fun. You know, she's kind of an amalgamation of a couple different kids that I've
Mm.
had the honor and joy of being with as they grow up. But I just had so much fun writing her and writing her scene. And I loved, actually, maybe my favorite character to write. He's in it for not very much, but there's a doorman.
Ah,
I had so much fun writing him, and he is very much ripped from my real life. Um, he is a almost a real person, and I had a lot of fun like imagining this doorman who I know, uh throwing him into this situation and imagining what he would say, and it just like had it was really joyful to write him. I loved it.
okay, I will have to say, you make every character come alive, and those are the books that I really like, where it's not just the main characters, right? But you fall in love with all the different characters, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about them, or like you just come to love all of them.
Oh,
So,
good. I'm so glad. A lot of that, I mean, it does come naturally to me. I care about that. I really, when I'm reading a book, I feel like it really bugs me. Maybe it's my pet peeve when I can see that a character was inserted only to like make something happen in the book or to bring out a certain conversation or something like that. Like, my goal is to make characters that are so real that these sorts of things can happen organically in the story, as opposed to, and now we need a realization here, so who can give her that realization, that kind of thing. So I do work really hard at that, and I will say my editor helps me a lot. My editor helped a lot with Reese. um Reese was originally a little bit more of a like strict mom, maybe like a cared more about how Ainsley behaved, or that sort of thing. And my editor was just kind of like, I'm not buying it. Like, it doesn't quite work. Like, I don't think you get an Ainsley if you have a mom that's,
mm,
you know, so Ainsley came first, Reese came second, and Reese came with a lot of help from my editor.
mm. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Totally. It's a team sport. It is a team sport.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about for this book is the Live Again list, because I loved that throughout the book, and then your blurb at the end with things for people, right? And as I get older, I'm really starting to feel this mortality thing where I see friends deal with health issues, right? Or my parents or my friends' kids even. And there's this fear and this grief that really hits hard. And so, as you say, you wanted to give something into the world to help someone along. I love that. And any thoughts on this Live Again list and what you encourage people?
Yeah. So one of the things that my publisher does at the end of every Dial Delights book, which is the imprint that I'm publishing under, is they always want extras from the author. And so one of the things they asked was, do you have more to say about grief? And could you write an essay? And I was just like, no, I don't. It's all in the book. Like, I can't talk about it anymore. Like, and I really did feel like kind of winded at the end of this book, where it was like, I really can't explore grief anymore. I did it, and I want to live, so I can't. So it was like, what am I going to do at the end of this book then? I needed another piece of content, and I wanted it to make people feel good. And I thought, let's do it. Let's do it like a Mad Libs. Um, I mean, the thing is when people read my books, they're reading. And I think there's like no better way to spend time than reading. I genuinely like, I'm a born and bred bookworm, so that I'm biased, but I'm thrilled that people are reading books. Anything that is, I mean, maybe someone could argue with me, but anything that's like not a negative or addictive behavior, I'm like trying to encourage in the world. So like, yeah, nothing on that list has to do with the internet. Nothing on that list has to do with um anything that's not like a kind of analog behavior, which it's like,
Mhm.
go out and interact with neighbors, go out and interact with your neighborhood, go out and do something that not necessarily makes you uncomfortable, but it's just like a little bit different than your well-worn groove. And that felt really important to me. I think just because I really want to make sure that the things I'm putting out to the world are positive and have a net positive impact on people. Uh, that's where that list came from. That's the part of my heart that that list came from.
I love that. I love, 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 love that. Okay. Ready or not, I know we've like spent a lot of time on Promise Me Sunshine, but we will continue. Ready or Not was the next one that I wanted to talk about. Again, we come back to like loving all the characters, right? You love both of the male main characters in here, like Shep, as we talked about, like showing up in quiet ways, like he is kind of that, right? Like always there, like food is my love language. So for
Mine
him to
too.
bring food, I was just like, oh, the things that we don't necessarily think about, but we absolutely need it, right? And the shoulder to cry on. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we just need someone to sit with us and not say anything, just that shoulder, right? And
Yes. Yes.
so I thought that was a really important message to have. But then you have Ethan, who has his own struggles, but you're also like, oh, he's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
He's also trying to like hold on to this piece, right? That he thinks he loves this person. Um, so you root for both of them, even though you know where it's going, right? You
Yes.
know?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I rooted for both of them, and people can co-parent. I loved that part of the message too, of people can co-parent well. It doesn't have to be
Right.
this all or nothing thing.
Totally. I'll say a couple things. One, you're a little bit in the minority there because I would say most people didn't like Ethan, or
Oh.
a lot of people in my DMs didn't like Ethan. I don't really know. Like, there's no way to measure the majority here, but
Yeah.
people felt really frustrated with him. I think there is a small group of people that like really loved him, maybe more than Shep, but for the most part, I think people were just annoyed with him, like frustrated, and he does have an arc and he gets there in the end and all that, but um uh, in particular, I think because the majority of the people that are reading this book are probably cis women, if I had to guess.
Hmm.
And so a lot of the people there are like who are reading it are picturing themselves more likely in Eve's shoes
Hmm.
than in Ethan's shoes. And I think therefore the readers are like, my guy, this is a baby. Like, step up. Like, come on. It's not rocket science. But for him, he's just genuinely not there. Like, for him, it's a pregnancy for a long time. He's not thinking about it being a baby yet. And neither does Eve actually for a while. She has to go through all the stages of your first pregnancy, and it takes 9 months to realize that you're bringing a person into the world and that you are going to be a different person because of that. It's kind of geniusly engineered, the whole 9 month thing. Like, it really does take that amount of time to like accept it. Um, but okay, so that was one of the things. What was the other thing I was going to say? That I love that you love Ethan. I love Ethan, and I loved writing his arc. Oh, co-parenting. Yeah, so at some point I read a parenting book, probably in the first like 6 months of my kid's life, that straight up said a 2-to-1 ratio for a baby is inhumane. That like 5-to-1 adults to baby is the only way that people can like retain their humanity and personhood while parenting. And I was like, again, during lockdown, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like what the hell? This is not okay. Like, what?
Yeah.
Um, and so I kind of like again wrote into reality like what felt like it could be make parenting more possible. It's just like having more parents, more devoted people there than just the two biological parents. And it made me genuine. This is a spoiler for Ready or Not. It made me genuinely happy to think of the baby having two homes having three parents, having potentially a floating parent that could go back between the two homes, having the the home where the baby isn't, they're getting really good sleep and recharging so that they can come
Mhm.
help with the baby. And, I picture that those three people parenting in a very fluid configuration. I picture Ethan having a floor bed at their house next to the baby's crib so that Eve and Shep can sleep. And um this seems very functional to me and very uplifting and hopeful. And again, there were people in my DMs that were very much like babies should be with their biological parents. Like, how could you have, again, spoiler for Ready or Not, how could you have made her end up with like not the baby daddy? Like really betrayed by that. And but to me, that's like the happiest possible ending
Yeah.
that it could have had, is that this kid gets three parents now and three devoted people to help
Yeah.
them get through what is going to be a really difficult time in their lives. There's nobody is like has their first baby and is like, it was a breeze.
Yeah.
Maybe if
Mhm.
you have like a full staff.
Yeah.
But for those of us who don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I did not parent by myself, but I cannot imagine going through like pregnancy by myself or like thinking you're going to do it by yourself, right? So it was a emotional ride for me. And then you
Yes.
have
Yes.
Willa, right? Like your bestie's not there because she's having her own struggles with it. And
Mhm,
I
mhm.
have not gone through like fertility issues, but I've journeyed with friends that have, right?
Yeah.
And it is a
Yeah.
real struggle.
Definitely.
So you just have all these different arcs, and I can see like Willa playing a big role
Mhm.
in that child's life too, right? So like like we said, the village is a beautiful thing. COVID screwed things up. Hopefully we don't have
Yes.
something like
Oh,
that
oh
again.
my God. I know. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, because my mom used to fly up and help us because we were both working parents, right? And that did not happen anymore during COVID, obviously.
Right. Right. Totally.
Technology can only do so much.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I loved it. Anything else on Ready or Not that you want to share before I want to talk about your audiobooks also.
Yeah. Um, Ready or Not was it just felt like everything came together from the cover to the audiobook reader who read audiobook. Her name is Alex Fink. She's an actor. She acts on Broadway and you can tell she has got the chops. Like, oh, she is so talented. It just drives me wild listening to those. She does both Ready or Not and Promise Me Sunshine. But I assume you were talking more about the Audible originals or
Mhm.
audiobooks in general.
Well, so I'm an audiobook lover.
Oh,
Like
okay.
that
Okay.
is the main way that I listen to books because like I work full time and like, this is how I do things. This is how I read so much. Um, but I do want to talk about the audiobook originals or the
Yes, yeah.
the only, right? So there's no book. It's just this almost graphic like music for your ears, performance for your ears kind of thing. Um, maybe this time, maybe we start there. Maybe this time. I didn't realize it was the guy from Schitt's Creek.
I
I
know.
realized that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's
Isn't
so
he
cool.
so good?
It was so fun.
He was so good. I was able to drop in on Zoom or like a Zoom equivalent while they're recording it. They let me like they open the doors and I come in and watch for a little bit. And I helped cast him. I knew he was going to be great. But watching him read for Mikey, I literally was watching it like this. I was like he couldn't see me, obviously, but I was just like, oh my God, he's so cute. Like I couldn't stand it. I just thought he was so good. And their chemistry together was just fantastic. Like, yeah, that was lightning in a bottle. I think it just was like perfect. I was watching them and Googling, like, is he married? Is she married? Is this the beginning of their love story? It's not. They're both married. But I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. What am I seeing?
Oh, so can you walk me through like the casting process? Like, how do you choose your narrators? What does that look
So they've always listened to me if I've been like, I wrote this character with this voice actor in mind.
like?
Um, and that actually just well, sort of happened with the one that's coming out in May. Sorry, it's all confused in my head. May we cast Mae Whitman, she was in like Arrested Development. She's in Parenthood. She's so good. If you should Google Mae Whitman. She's amazing, and I've always been such a fangirl for her. And we were able to cast her in this book, so it was like, perfect.
Oh, I can't
Yeah.
wait. This, you said May? Or
Yeah.
like it's coming out in May? May
Oh,
is narrating for the one coming out in May?
yes, correct. Spelled differently, but yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I loved Parenthood, so
right. Yes. Okay. Um, I write the book, I write a character write up, and I emphasize things that I would like to see an actor be able to do. So for
Mhm,
this one that's coming out in May, one of the things that the characters needed to, or the that she needed to be able to do is sing. And so that narrowed down the pool of people they're looking for. And then the director of the book, her name is Sarah, and she's been my director the whole time. And I hope we never get separated. Sarah and Joe does the audio design. Um, they are brilliant, brilliant people, and we have really good project creation chemistry together. And I seriously hope that we can just do this into infinity because I love them. And my editor, Allison, like the four of us are a dream team. I hope it never gets split up. But so yeah, I talked to Sarah about that. She talks to the casting. There's like a casting team that is they're also like working in contracts and stuff like that, trying to figure out, does this person's schedule work, or what are they available, that sort of thing. And then they come back with a list, usually of like 20-25 people, and I go through and I either like watch the show that they're on, or I listen to the other audiobooks that they've done. I sent back a narrowed list. It goes back and forth, and then we make our list of hierarchy. Who can we get this person? And then we try. And then sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't. And we rearrange based on pairings and stuff like that. And who we think. It's all a big spider web. And it's really fun. And we've never had a miss. Like, and I think it's because everybody on that we're choosing in the first place is just extremely talented. So whatever we thought was going to happen, it's always better than we thought it was going to be, because in the end, you're dealing with real people who are processing the things that I've written, doing the things I've asked, but also making it their own.
mhm,
And there's something there that is, you just can't predict. It's just this like beautiful human project. I love working on them. They're always a surprise to me. I learn something every time. And it's really fun to write for audio. They don't even call them books, they call them audio plays.
mm,
And it feels that way. How to translate, first of all, I write all the design. So I'm like, okay, we need to hear the door close here. We need to hear it open over here. And it
uh-huh.
should be in your left ear here and your right ear there. Like we figure all of that out. I write it down, and then my audio guy makes it so that it works. And I will say, never once have I asked, can this happen? Can we make this happen? He's never once said no. He's always like, yes, sure, this is how we do it. Even when I'm like, how do we go through walls in a house and also time? He's
Yeah, yeah.
sure, no problem. We could like, you just can make it all work. Yeah, and so I'm writing that, like, how do we make a scene legible just orally? And
Mhm,
then also, how do we make content legible only through dialogue?
mhm,
So those are the two things I'm balancing at the same time. There's narrative in books that I write. Oftentimes they're dialogue only. Both have their different challenges. It's a lot to juggle, and there are sometimes I drop the ball. Like my editor will get it and she'll be like, literally, what are they talking about here? I'm like, oh right, I need subjects. Nouns, insert nouns here so we know what they're talking about. But yeah, it's a game. It's like it's a playground. It's really, really, really fun.
yeah. Oh, I love audiobooks, like I said. So it's just really fun. I love graphic audios. And so this is just kind of like an in between. Well, I don't know if it's an in between, but yeah, it's really fun. So people should go listen to it. I know it's Audible exclusive, but
Yes, yes, only on Audible. They're Audible originals, and they're free if you have a subscription, which I think that's how most people listen to Audible is with a subscription. Maybe
yeah,
people buy things a la
maybe
carte
that's it.
sometimes, but yeah, no,
Have to have it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess with that, I will also ask. So for people that me, I don't like to buy too many books, and we moved and we're like, okay, we need to downsize the stuff that we have. How can we best support authors? Like I buy the audiobooks. I love my library, sometimes Kindle Unlimited, right? All these non-physical ways. Is there a best way to support you and authors?
Oh, well, I mean, word of mouth is big, but libraries. There are so many libraries in the United States, and if you think about it, if every library in the United States bought your book,
Hmm.
that's a lot of sales right there. And so you are absolutely helping your favorite authors when you go and check in and check in and check in with your library. Do you have it? Can you get it? I think we need more copies. It's, that kind of thing. Like that really, it not only helps get the word out about your book because then it's suddenly on a shelf or it's got, the librarian is like, oh, there's interest drummed up here. Maybe it should have its own little table, that kind of thing. Obviously, those things really help, but they literally order copies of the book. They pay for it. So that matters. That deeply matters. Whenever it's my favorite thing whenever anybody posts a picture of the book and I can see the library tag on it because I'm
Oh.
like, yes, let's get it out in the world. And of course, I mean, libraries are, it was very formative for me growing up, both my school library and my public library. They're where so much of this intellectual, um, the intellectual pursuit of a book doesn't have to be monetized and shouldn't be behind a paywall. And I mean, that's how I read most of the books I read growing up. And I really want to be a part of that grand tradition. Because books are expensive and books are getting more expensive. And oh man, it stresses me out when I see the price point of my book. I'm like, this should be 50% cheaper. But
Oh.
it's not, and I don't have any control over that. And so please get it from your library and talk to your library. And when you're on vacation, just wander in and talk to the library.
Yeah.
Into
Well,
different
I'm gonna start doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's very, very meaningful in both an emotional way and in a physical way to your authors, your favorite
Oh,
authors.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of times I feel guilty. I'm like, I'm always getting it from the library. Like, is that
No
okay?
way.
No.
No,
Okay.
it is meaningful. It matters. And I think, I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions to this rule, but I know a lot of authors, and I cannot think of a single one who would choose people buying it and not reading it over people getting it from the library and reading it. Like
Mhm.
what authors want is for people to read the book. So that no, it doesn't matter the means to the end. It doesn't matter. Like libraries, get it from the library. It's awesome.
So I would love to do some quick fire questions before we wrap up. I think I have five. Let's go with that.
Okay.
So the first one is, what are you reading right now? And if you're like me, maybe you have multiple books in multiple formats, like your Kindle, physical book, audiobook. What are you reading right now?
Okay. I am reading, okay. I do have multiple books. Anna Karenina is my
Ooh,
bedtime book. Let's see. I just got an arc of this book, Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. I'm really excited to read it. I'm reading another arc called Only a Chapter. It is super interesting, and the way I can't wait for people to read it. It's really cool.
okay, okay.
And one more, oh, I haven't started it yet, but I just got First Time Caller, BK Borison.
Oh, that
Yes.
is also on a lot of things that I'm gonna put on my TBR.
Yeah.
It just keeps growing. What is the favorite book you have written and why?
Oh, my favorite book I have ever written. One that favorite is a hard one, but one that I always just love still. It was in my Harlequin series. It's called Flirting with Forever, and the male lead is a public defender. And he is just a very calm and justice-minded person. And uh I love him. I go back to him a lot. I don't know why. He's kind of a grump. He's kind of misunderstood, but he has this, it sounds corny, but heart of gold. And I've noticed in reading a lot of romance that you see a lot, like anyone who I'd never seen another public defender. And any lawyer who was like defending a criminal was always seen as like totally smarmy and um, gross
Yeah.
and or like out for money or whatever. But of course, that's not reality. And of course, like public defenders are doing God's work. And so I just was like, I need to make this job sexy. Like we need to reward this job for people because it is truly God's work. Like we need public defenders.
Yeah.
Um, and I just still like feel very proud of that book. And it's like a comfort. I go back to certain scenes from it, like when I would like to reconnect with the me that wrote it. And yeah, I love that one.
Oh, I love how you said the me that wrote it because you change over time. Like we were talking
Yes,
about
yes, yes.
this, right? And oh, I love that. What book or who is your favorite book or author? I know it's hard to choose.
My favorite, I mean, Pride and Prejudice,
Mm.
Jane Austen, tied with Persuasion, Jane Austen, tied with Middlemarch, George Eliot. Are you sensing a theme? Yeah, probably those three.
Is there a genre of writing that you would branch or would like to branch out into? I know you said you wrote multiple things, you have come to romance, you love romance. Is there anything else you would want to branch out into?
I love romance. I want to stay in romance forever. I love a trope. I think tropes are so useful and wonderful, and I love the audience. I really want to write an epic, and I don't see a lot of. I think that often when a writer has accomplished an epic, automatically it gets kind of marketed as something else.
Mm.
But I want a very firm romance epic, contemporary. I really want it. I'm going for it.
Ooh, you heard it here. TBD when
Yes,
it's happening. Make your dreams come true, right?
absolutely.
Last one is a book you wish more people knew about.
Oh, okay. So, Wildlife by Opal Way. It did get a lot of play. I will say it's not like nobody knows about it. It was, I think, a big success.
Mhm.
But this book was so good that I just was like, how is this not on every list? Like it just was so fantastic and unique. Opal Way writes under Ruby Lang as well, and I believe she has a book coming out under the name Mindy Hung as well. Um, but Wildlife, you heard it here. You're not going to regret it. It's so good and unique. It's fantastic, and her characters are just like the dialogue is so good and the the journeys that the arcs that the characters go on are like both spirally and direct at the same time. It's just fantastic. I love her.
I'm going. It's added. Um, well, anything else you want readers to know about you before we wrap up?
Um,
Or anything you want to share?
yeah. Okay. I'm really bad at Instagram. I want to connect with you, reader. You, reader, I want to connect with you. So please either sign up for my newsletter, which I don't spam. I'm not like selling anything on it. It's much more like a Substack, but it just is, it's not a Substack. It's just my newsletter. It's short form essay, thoughts I have. if you subscribe to the newsletter, then you get my personal email address and I will email with you. I love emailing with readers. It's like my favorite thing ever. I DMs are extremely difficult for me. I do them because I love readers and I want to say thank you for reaching out to me and for reading my books. But if you really want my heart, subscribe to my newsletter and email me, and that's my joy.
Yeah. I think you even say that on your website, right? You say, I'm bad at internet.
Yes.
I love that. It just made me giggle. So I think you said it, where people can connect with you further, your website, you're on the
Newsletter.
socials, but email is really
Email
the
is really the thing. You can connect with me on it's just Cara Bastone. I'm on Gmail or what's Instagram.
Instagram.
Um, and I don't think I'm anywhere else. I think it's Instagram and my newsletter. I think that's where you can find me.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for chatting with us. It was an absolute pleasure. And thank you also for your books that you put out into this world. I absolutely come away hopeful and swoony and, inspired. So
Thank you for having me. This was such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it.